and thank you so much for joining me for Tune In Tuesday. My name is Sharon Rogers, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Wells, Maine in the United States. And every second and fourth Tuesday, I bring you an online class via my YouTube channel. Now, the second Tuesday of the month is what I call Technique Tuesday, where we focus either on a specific product and all the techniques that you can do with that, or we focus on a specific technique itself. Last month, we focused on heat embossing, and there were just so many techniques associated with that I needed to break it up into 2 sessions. So tonight you're going to get the second set of techniques for heat embossing. And I hope I've got something new to show you tonight. Let's get started. Let's begin with a piece of basic white cardstock. This measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's slightly bigger than what I'm going to need, but this will allow me to cut it down, especially where I'm going to be doing some ink blending. I find that getting rid of those harsh edges is preferable. I'm bringing in the one-of-a-kind stamp set, and I'm going to use all 3 of the little snowflakes that are in this set. And I'm going to mount 2 of them on the same block, I think. But not the third one, I don't think. I'm not sure. I'm bringing a Versamark pad. And Versamark is a clear ink pad. We learned that last Technique Tuesday. And it stays wetter longer, so that allows you to take the time to do all your stamping, then add the powder. I'm going to take my embossing buddy and just rub it over here. That gets rid of the static and some extra residual oils and moisture from your hands, because the powder will stick to that given the opportunity. And so because I'm doing that, I'm just going to bring in also maybe these tweezers just to kind of hold it so I'm not holding it with my fingers. We're going to just stamp some snowflakes all over. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see where I'm stamping because it's clear ink. You could also emboss in silver too. Same technique is going to apply. And notice I am changing my orientation of my stamps around so that they're not always in the same spot. Now, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pick the edge up a little bit with so I can see the glisten of where I've already stamped. And that way I know I'm going to add my larger snowflake in a couple of different areas. And it's all right if they overlap a little bit with the other ones. I'm just very sparingly using that particular one. All right, I think I have enough snowflakes on here. Let me go ahead and, yeah, looks like I've got looks like I could use another one right here. Let's go ahead. I probably will end up covering this one up anyway, but we'll put one there just in case. Bring in my Embossing Editions toolkit tray. Now, this is an older tray. The new one is the gray one. I'm bringing in the clear embossing powder. So with the Wow Basics embossing powders, you get 3 bottles. You get a black, a white, and a clear. We also have a metallics one that has silver, gold, and copper. It's copper or bronze. So I'm being very liberal with the embossing powder. It's all going to funnel back into the jar anyway. So now you may not be able to tell because of the camera, but I can now see where the powder is sticking to the snowflakes. And again, if you find an area is missing some, that you'd like to add a few more snowflakes, like I can see a couple of overlapping here, but then there's like open space right here. You can very carefully come in and fill in some of those areas. So I need some snowflakes right here. And I need a snowflake down here. All right, I'll just add some more powder again. I'm almost out. Where'd I add those guys? Oh, here, and down here. All right. Oh, I spilled a little powder. That's all right. We'll get that later. So I'm now just funneling this back in, which is really, I mean, this tray is wonderful. Now, some people don't like the tray. I mean, some people don't use the tray. They use a coffee filter, which in my experience, I mean, that and a folded piece of paper, they work, but you're more apt to get a mess. All it takes is one little wiggle, and paper is pretty wiggly sometimes, and it goes everywhere. So now we're going to emboss this. Let's bring in our heat tool. Where's my heat tool? Here it is. And you can emboss directly on the glass mat. I'm not going to emboss on my other surface because it is a foam pad, and that heat is not going to agree with that very well. It'll ruin it. Glass mat is heat resistant, so it makes it perfect. Glass mat is also a great Christmas present if you want to give a hint to people. It provides a really nice, perfectly flat stamping surface, which is of course what you want. Probably can't see it on camera, but there are areas turning nice and shiny white, and that means that the embossing powder has melted. So you want to move on to the next area. And I know that white on white is really hard to see. But you'll see the magic in a second. Just making sure I get all those spots heated. There's one I missed. There we go, there it goes. Right here on the edges. I missed as well. Okay. So several years ago, we had a beautiful designer series paper that had some silver embossed trees and snowflakes. And I made this, what I call a cotton candy sky. And it was just so gorgeous. So I thought I would recreate that tonight. A cotton candy sky uses just some really soft colors. I'm going to bring in Fresh Freesia, Pool Party, and Misty Moonlight. And I've already got some Fresh Freesia on here, but let's put some more on. Now you want to start light and then go dark. And it doesn't matter which end you're going to go for. You can flip it around. There's not necessarily a top or bottom yet here. I'm just putting this on pretty lightly because a cotton candy sky is just soft and beautiful. And we want to really make this just soft and beautiful. I'm going to put a little bit more because I'm going to add some snow here in a little bit. Some faux snow, obviously. All right. Now I'm going to bring in Pool Party. Balmy Blue would also work nicely, I think. But I'm going to bring in some Pool Party. And I'm trying not to mix the colors, so I don't want to go down into the fresh freesia. I just want to stay above it a little bit. Again, use a nice soft touch. Just starting to remind you of a beautiful winter sky at sunset, or I suppose sunrise. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in Misty Moonlight. Nice circular motions. Now it's not looking like much yet, I know, but the magic is about to happen. Oh, I forgot that I am trimming down some of the edges too. I didn't get enough Misty Moonlight in here to suit my fancy, I don't think. All right. So you can probably see those snowflakes starting to come out. I think I want a little bit more pool party right here in the middle. Let's go ahead and ink up some more. Let's make that a little bit more even. All right. And now you'll need a soft cloth or a paper towel, and you're going to buff this. So there may be some ink laying along the top of the snowflakes. And so that's what you're taking off. You're not taking off the ink that's on the cardstock. That won't come off anyway. You're just taking off the ink that's living on top of the embossed area. And then the snowflakes just pop right on out. So down here, looks like I could use a little bit more ink because it's not quite showing up enough for my liking. Well, we'll go ahead and we can do this again and again until we're satisfied with how it looks. I'm guessing I didn't put enough snowflakes down here. Like I said, I'm going to be covering some of it up, so it's not really going to be a huge deal. I just want to see a couple of snowflakes pop out. That's better. Okay. So there we have our beautiful sky. Let's create a scene out of this. We'll set this aside and we'll bring in our paper trimmer and cut a card base of Misty Moonlight. I might as well make 2 card bases while I'm at it. So I'll score down at 4 1/4, and then we'll cut up at 5 1/2. There's 1 card base, and then we'll set this other aside. And then I'll bring in a piece of fresh freesia, and I think I'll make that 4 inches by 5 1/4. You know what? I want to make it a little bit smaller. So we're going to make it 3 3/4 by 5. And then we're going to take this piece and cut that down just a little bit. So I want to trim off all the edges. So I'm just going to take a hair off 2 of the edges, the top and one of the sides, because I don't want to trim off too much of this Misty Moonlight. And then I want to trim the rest to be the right size. So if this was 3 3/4 wide, let's go ahead and make that 3 1/2. And if it's 5 inches long, we're going to make this 4 3/4. Now when we mat this, we will get something that looks like this. Pretty colors together, don't you think? Now, we've got our snow falling, but we need some snow. Bring in another piece of basic white, and we're going to tear some snow. And you don't want it too even. All right. And there's the torn side, which I like the looks of a lot. And you can just bring that down in here, and there's your snow. There's one section of snow. And then we can take our trimmer and this other section of torn snow. We'll trim some of that off as well. Now this is way too long for our piece. That's all right. We can make an adjustment here. So if we put this down right here along the side, and then there's going to be another one that kind of comes up a little bit more, and we can adjust the height. But we've got a couple different layers of snow going on there. And that's what we want. So let's go ahead and we'll put this larger one in the back. So my adhesive is over here. I'll just put this directly here. I know this is going to fit on. All right. So we've got that adhered. We can just trim this off the back. Okay. And then if we want to put another little layer of snow in here, we can. And let's do that. Notice I'm laying down the paper first and then trimming after. You can do it either way you want. What I don't want to end up having is something that's a little bit too short. And yes, that has happened to me before, so that's why I'm applying my torn edges this way. And it's very easy to trim off because you've got that edge to go with. And so here we have just a really pretty scene. That. We can either pop this up on dimensionals or just leave it flat the way it is. I think I'm going to leave it flat, and we'll pop our sentiment up on dimensionals. All right. Another thing that would be great to add to this snow would be Wink of Stella. That just adds a nice little shimmer. And I'm going to put that right along the top of this torn edge and this torn edge. I mean, you can also do some little extra lines in there. Let's see if you can see it on camera. Probably not. But I'm trying my best to show you. But there is sparkle on there. And you can always add some more sparkle. And right about now, I know the people that were in my one of my Christmas Santa's Workshop classes earlier this month are going, use the shimmery white embossing paste. Yes, you could do that too. But I chose just to use Wink of Stella, and it is sparkly too. All right, let's go ahead and put on a sentiment. I've brought in this label die from the mini pocket envelope dies. We use these mini pocket envelope dies on our maybe second or third Sunday of Christmas project this year. We created that cutlery holder, that place setting, if you recall. And so I'm going to just use this label. You could use obviously any label you want. I'm going to go ahead and apply my anti-static embossing buddy. We will bring in the white embossing powder this time because I think white on Misty Moonlight looks beautiful. We'll need our Versamark pad again. Now it looks like I've got red on my stamp, but red and pink inks do stain the photopolymer, but it does not affect their stamping, and it will not come off when you're stamping as long as you've cleaned your stamp. I'm going to stand up so I can get this placed properly. I hope I have that placed properly. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, I could have gone ahead and just done a Misty Moonlight. That would have been a darker ink on there. But I'm going to really like how the white pops off of here. Gives that wintry feel. All right. Make sure that I've got all the stray pieces off. Oops, looks like that didn't take right there. Get a little bit more powder on there. There we go. I'll pour that back in just a moment. Bring in our heat tool. And because this is a fairly small piece, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring my tweezers in to hold it so I don't burn my hands. Again, this is part of the Embossing Editions toolkit. Put that up, see if you can see the magic of it when it starts to happen. Oops, starting to go. Look how nice, bright, shiny white that looks. There we go. Hope you have the merriest season ever. All right. We're going to bring this in, but we definitely need to pop that up, but I think it needs something else. Maybe this silver ribbon. And how would we want to apply this silver ribbon? Maybe in a bow, well, kind of a, you know, like one of the hope bows. We could do that, or we could do a zigzag. Let's see if we do that. It's hard to see how I'm going to want it. I think the ribbon is a little bit too wide for that. We're going to go with the kind of hope looking bow. You know, this little thing that just looks like that. And that'll lay down pretty nicely. We can trim the ends afterwards. I just need some adhesive to hold that. And I think the best way to hold that is going to be with some mini glue dots. Now these are dots that I have left over from a paper pumpkin. Just apply one there. You get all sorts of stuff with paper pumpkin, and you always have leftovers. Oh, I think I didn't take the adhesive off that one. Hold on. There we go. And then this will just go right over the top of it, just like that. And we can trim the ends. I'm going to put this on with dimensionals. Again, these are paper pumpkin leftovers. Okay. So it's just a really simple card where that emboss resist is doing the trick. Have you heard about Stampin' Up's seasonal sale? The seasonal sale begins tomorrow, November 13th, and runs through November 16th. During this sale, you'll save on products in the annual catalog. Now, the focus for the last couple months has been on the September to December mini catalog because of the holiday nature of it. However, this sale applies to the annual catalog, so dig that back out because there's so many great products in there. You're going to save 10% on ink products. Now, everything except for the ink pad bundles and the third-party brands like the Versamark that we're using tonight is on sale. So if there are ink pads that you still want to add to your collection, or maybe you want to, like me, replace some of your Stampin' Blends that have been used to death, or maybe you're missing some of the colors, then now's a good time. You'll also save 10% on cardstock. This is the time of year that I definitely take advantage of this sale because cardstock very rarely goes on sale. And so I'm going to be ordering lots of packages of basic white and thick basic white and a few of the colors to add to the ones that are running low back there. You'll save 20% on the stamp bundles. Now these are the bundled items, so they're in the front part of the catalog. Whether it's stamp and die bundles or stamp and punch bundles, you'll save 20% on those bundles from the annual catalog. And also you'll save 20% on the designer series paper from the annual catalog. So go ahead and grab that annual catalog and look through it and see what you might like. After this next card, I'm going to explain why it's an even better time to do this. Hint, hint, it's because of the class card kit. But first, let's make another card. All right, for this next one, we're doing a variation on the Joseph's coat technique. I've shown Joseph's coat before, where I applied several different colors of ink in random order on a piece of basic white. And then I embossed. Well, I'm going to start with pre-printed designer series paper. So it's like I've applied the ink already, although I didn't have to apply any ink and I didn't have to let it dry. I'm going to bring in a nice bold stamp. This is the Leafy Collection, or the Leaf Collection. Looks like kind of tropical leaves, but tropical or not, we're going to just add them to our card. I know it's not exactly tropical season right where we are, but it is in some parts of the world. All right, so I'm bringing in my Versamark again. And we're inking it up really, really well. Want to get really good coverage. So I go over it a couple times. Just want to make sure everything's really covered well. And because this is such a large stamp, I'm going to just take my paper. Oh, I should use my embossing buddy on it first. All right. I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip it over, and I really want to focus mostly on this area. Oh, you know what? The back side of this is pretty good too. Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm going to go with this side. I decided to go with the simpler side. It was a little less complicated. The grass on the other side was probably going to be a little too much detail for this technique. It was just going to be a little confusing. So I reshot this and didn't speak through most of this section, so that's why I'm doing a voiceover. Ink this up very well with your Versamark pad. You want to have really good coverage. With larger stamps, I like to flip the paper over and just rub the back. You want to make sure you've pressed over the whole entire thing. Now we'll bring in our clear embossing powder. And this is going to produce areas of resist, just as we had in the last card. Except exposing white is not what we're doing. We're exposing the color that's underneath the embossed areas. I just love my embossing tray. Now we'll bring in our heat tool and heat it up. All right, instead of garden green, I think I am going to pull in Pretty Peacock, just to see what it looks like when we start out with the Pretty Peacock. So the Pretty Peacock is not quite as dark, obviously, as the black, but it does coordinate very nicely with all these colors, as it's one of the colors that's in the paper. You can see those leaves popping through. You do still have some of the, it's kind of an inky kind of, watercolor edge look in there. But obviously this saved us from just putting random colors in the back. So we're gonna take it. We're gonna be fine with it. All right, let's go ahead and buff some of this off. And look at that pop pretty nicely. Now remember, it's not going to pop off white because it wasn't white underneath. So you're getting the color, which is what you want to get showing through. It really looks like we've stamped or embossed in multiple colors here, instead of it just being the paper. All right, let's trim this down. I think I do like this one better. Let's trim it down. See what we can do with it. Let's see, so 3 3/4 or 4. Let's go with the 3 3/4. And then we're going to go with 5 inches. So we'll trim off some there, and then the rest over here. Joseph's coat makes a really beautiful background. So all you need is something bold. And you've got that really pretty look. All right, let's bring in a piece of Pretty Peacock cardstock. We'll make that as a card. That's our card base. We have a piece of wild wheat because there's wild wheat in here, so it'll pull it out. Oop, not in there. That's the other one that we used. Where's the one we just did? Good question. Right here. And figure out how we want that to go. Adhere it right to the paper. Because this had quite a bit of embossing and ink on it, it does tend to curl a little bit, so you want to make sure you get a good amount of adhesive all the way around the edges. Ooh, got a good amount of adhesive somewhere. Got it on my hands. Come on, slide. 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 Oh, it's not going to slide. It's stuck the way it is. Oh, well. We'll call it good enough. And we're going to just put that right on there. Probably could have used a slightly larger border of wild wheat. Sometimes it's a little tricky knowing what size to use. Now, where do I want the light? I think I want the lighter color up top. All right, so there we go. And now all we need to do is put a greeting on here. Stick it down. Make sure it's stuck down well. I think we'll bring in a piece of white. And we just need a sentiment on there. Let's see. How about if we do a little bit of all right, I know what I'm going to do here. We're going to make a little banner. So I'm going to cut down this wild wheat piece to a 1/2 inch long. We need to figure out what sentiment we want on here, right? Let's find a good sentiment. I've got the Everyday Greetings, which is an online exclusive. And I'll go with the Thinking of You. That covers lots of different occasions. And we need to cut down something. So if I'm using my glass mat to find out how big this is, it is about 2 3/4. So I'm going to make it 3 inches long and about, I guess, 1 inch wide. So let me take a piece of paper that's 3 inches and make it 1 inch wide. This is a little bit more than 3 inches. That's going to be fine. Let's do the pretty peacock. What I like about the cursive writing is it's not as hard to get it straight, quote unquote, straight on the paper. All right, so now I have this little greeting, and I can make a little banner. So let's cut it about here. Let's see if we can flag both ends. Well, I know we can. Okay. And there's one flag. Let's see if the other end is the right length. Yeah, it'll be the right length when we flag it. Just cut in from the corners, and they'll meet at the center, hopefully. Come on, get in there. There we go. All right. We put that right on just like that. It does not need a lot of stuff going on, especially thinking of you cards. We sometimes tend to overcomplicate, and thinking of you generally means, you know, something is going on and somebody just needs to know we care, or that somebody cares. And that's, I think, one of the beauties of stamping and creating cards, homemade cards. You know, sometimes there's just not a lot of stuff that we can do for other people. Like, we can't make the problems go away. We can't cure their illnesses, but we can let them know that they're not alone. We're helping, as Sarah Douglas, the CEO of Stampin' Up! Would say, eradicate loneliness. So do not ever minimize the power of a handmade card. There we go. Thinking of you. We can add some little gems here. That'll make that a little bit extra special. All right, so this is the opal rounds. They were out of stock for a really long time, and I'm gonna use some of these yellower ones in here, and they almost don't appear as yellow as they are once you place them. We could sprinkle them anywhere on here. Why am I not using my Take Your Pick tool? Let's see, let's just put that right in the bottom there. And I think I want some more in here. I think there needs to be more. One more, because we have to have an odd number, right? Let's see, there's a couple over there. Let's do another one over here. All right, and so there is our card. All right, what color are we going to emboss in this time? I could do silver. Yeah, let's do a different color. Let's do silver. So here's the actual embossing toolkit, Embossing Editions toolkit tray that you get. The gray one is the current one. I just had that black one since forever. I love it. We can do silver, or we can do the copper. I'm going to be using Pretty Peacock and Pool Party. I think I will go with the silver, just to keep it kind of in a cooler tone. Bring in our Versamark. Bring in our embossing buddy. I lost the original bag, so larger bag is what it's going to be. I have a piece of Pool Party here, much larger than I need. I'm bringing in a very bold stamp, and it says thanks. It's from the My Small Business set, because I can always use thank you cards, but this is great not just for those with small businesses. Anytime you want to send a thanks, look at how many different kinds of thanks there are. Oh, now see this poor little guy, he's seen a lot of stamping at some recent events that I've had, and sometimes people don't necessarily clean the stamps as well as they probably should. That's all right. It's not going to affect as long as I'm not stamping in or I'm not embossing in clear. And it probably wouldn't even really affect it then. You'll find that the ink dissipates as time goes on. It just kind of spreads throughout. I'm re-inking this one because it looked a little bit dry. So I squeeze the Versamark refill on it, and then I just kind of rub it in. Because I'm embossing in silver, I don't care that that's not 100% perfect. I do get people that say, oh, you must hate that, you know, that kind of stuff happens to your stuff. I'm kind of used to it. And the fun of teaching people far outweighs a couple of things that I might have to replace. And honestly, I don't have to replace that. It works just fine. So here we go. We're going to dump that on. I'm just going to take the easy way out and sprinkle it that way. All right. Bring in our heat tool. So we just embossed and took a blending brush and applied some ink over it. And the embossing resisted. The embossing ink resisted the other ink. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm embossing this in silver, and I'm going to take some watercolor. So I have a water painter here. It's got some water in it. And I'm going to show you this at the next card too, but I'm just dipping my clear block into the pad. That way I can close my pad. And I'm going to pick up some of the ink from here. And then I'm just going to do this. I'm getting a little bit of a watercolory look, a wash right behind it. It's just kind of a, you know, it's not neat. I'm going for that kind of brushed look in there. You can do this on white watercolor paper. I would, if I'm doing it on basic white, I would probably do it on thick basic white, because it is, we are adding water to it, and so we don't want it to kind of start to dissolve and disintegrate. All right, so now I have this. This is going to be our super, super simple card. Now, I think I will bring in a die. I'll bring in the Countryside Corners dies, and I'm using this one because it's quite a bit larger. I'm going to just kind of center that in there. And so I still get those stroke marks. And it's just kind of fun. Take a little bit of, I don't need a piece that large. Put that over here in this corner, and I'm going to emboss it. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't make sure that my ink was off the silver. Oh, there we go. So we're getting some ink off. Right. You do want to make sure you're buffing that off, just to get that as bright silver as you can. Now this is kind of crooked, so let's see. I gotta make the thanks in there straight. All right, I think that's gonna be fine. I'm gonna die cut this and be back. All right, so now we have our little thanks. We need a card for this to go on. So here we have Pool Party. We've got Pretty Peacock ink, which looks a lot like Lost Lagoon. It's a little bit darker, but I'm going to get this a little bit snazzier. I'm going to bring in my sketched plaid background stamp. Again, I love background stamps because they, you know, they do most of the work for you. Now, I may or may not get this exactly right on here. So I'm going to cut another piece of Lost Lagoon that is just slightly smaller. Well, I say it's slightly smaller. It will be slightly smaller once I'm done. I'm going to ink up this plaid stamp. With my Pretty Peacock. I'm going to lay this down on the top. and rub over the top. Now I don't want to kind of poke it because there might be some areas within the squares that got a little bit inked. I just want to get that impression right there. That's so pretty. And now I can use my paper trimmer to cut this down. So I'm going to make sure that these lines are, ooh, it looks like it's pretty straight to begin with. All right. And let's see, we cut on this line too. And then I want to cut this so that it's 5 1/4 probably by 4. And it's sketched plaid, so it's not exactly 100% 90 degrees on all the intersections. It is a little bit off in some spots. So we have this look going on right here. Now notice I just flipped this over because I noticed some cardstock is a little bit off from 8.5 by 11. It might be a little bit longer, might be a little bit shorter, just a teeny tiny bit, but it's within the tolerance that's acceptable. So if you notice when you fold and you can see this bottom sticking out from the top, flip it over and you won't have that problem. We're going to adhere this piece. Oop. Big squirt of glue there. Let's see if I can spread it out a little bit. All right. So there's that plaid on there. And then we're just going to put this thanks right up there on some dimensionals. Doesn't have to be complicated. Simple and done is better than not done at all. You wanted to put some ribbon on here, you could, but I envision this going to perhaps someone who is not about the flashiness. They're okay with just something that's very, very simple. And so here is that card. All right, here's our final commercial break, and this is about the class card kit. If you've been watching Tune In Tuesdays, you know how this works, but for those of you who don't, let me explain. If you place an order of $35 or more in my online store, and the link is below in the description of this video, then you will receive the class card kit. That comes with a free tutorial for all the projects that you've seen here tonight. And these tutorials include the supplies needed, a list of all the supplies needed. It includes the step-by-step directions, and it includes the measurements, as well as a link back to this video. But the class card kit also includes the cardstock, envelopes, and embellishments used on the cards created tonight. Now, even if you don't have the stamps or the inks that I used specifically tonight, you can recreate with what you have. Or perhaps you want to take advantage of the sale and add some items to your basket. If your order is $60 or more, you'll not only receive the class card kit, but you will receive a package of embellishments. Now, I'm going to surprise you this time with the embellishments, but I can tell you that they are very shiny, very flat, and very colorful. Take a look through your annual catalog and see if you can guess which embellishments are going to be included. But that's with your $60 or more item or order. And of course, the $35 and $60 figures, that's before shipping and tax. If you have any questions, please let me know. But again, that link to let me know that you are ordering for the class card kit is in the description of this video. All right, let's get back to our technique. for this card, we're going to bring in the Enduring Beauty stamp set that we used last Technique Tuesday. We're going to do something a little bit differently. We're going to emboss this image in black embossing powder. As with all the other cards, we're going to ink this up generously with Versamark ink. And by the way, when this starts to get dry, you can add re-inker. And I think this is starting to get a little bit drier, so I'll probably do that after we're done tonight. Ink it up generously. And I am bringing in a piece of watercolor paper because we're going to be watercoloring. So we need something that holds up to the water pretty well. And I want to position this so it all fits on there. I think this is a half sheet of watercolor paper, so I think it's 3.5 by 5. Just want to make sure we got good coverage here. I'm just going to come down and measure it for you. Yeah, it's 3.5 by 5. And the color that we have not used yet from our basics powder set is the black. Now, I do want to make sure that my tray is empty of all the other colors. A few specks here and there aren't going to matter, but look at what happens when we put this on. So there's a little bit something that's different about embossing in black rather than stamping in black. And that's, well, not just the raised look that you get, but the shininess of it too, once you've embossed it. Make sure I've got enough powder everywhere. I think I need a little bit more down here. Just flick on the back to get any errant spots off. All right. Larger images sometimes just take a little bit more time to make sure you've got all the powder where it needs to be. I do not emboss in black a ton anymore. I used to do it a lot more than I do now. I'll probably like to do it a little bit more now that I'm doing it like, once I see this nice black shiny stuff, but definitely want to make sure my black powder is out of my tray. All right, here we go. Oh, it's looking so pretty and shiny. Now you definitely don't want to overheat this. You want to keep it so it's raised. So once it melts, move on to another section. And switch it over here so you don't burn your hands. Okay, we have it all embossed, and look at how rich that just looks. It's so, so pretty. All right, now we're going to watercolor. All right, I am putting my paper down to my glass mat. You can do it to whatever surface you have, but I'm trying to tape it down so that it's not going to move anywhere. The edges, when they start to curl, aren't going to impact what I'm doing. I've gone ahead and I've put some ink onto some clear blocks. So this is Granny Apple Green. I just put some on there. I did it also for Garden Green and Blackberry Bliss and Fresh Freesia. So I've got that all set up. I have a water spritzer, and I'm going to, now this is the part that takes a little bit of trial and error. You want to get it wet enough so that the water is pooling a little bit, but not so much that it's pooling and running over the sides of the embossing. So I'm going to start at one end and just There, I think that's going to be enough. We can add a little bit more if we need to. I'm going to take my water painter now and pick up and put that in here. I'm working fairly quickly and I'm just touching it, and that's filling in the flowers. You'll be able to see it a little bit more with the Blackberry Bliss. See how it just kind of spreads? And it fills those little ink well spots. I know it's not quite wet enough over here, so I'm going to do one more spritz, or maybe two. We'll see. And now it's drying over here, so I'll add a little bit more there. If you get too much, it starts to seep over the edge, and you don't want that. I mean, it is watercolor, so watercolor can spread outside the lines. In fact, most watercolor artists will tell you that's preferred. But ideally, you've got it wet enough so that it kind of fills in there and just sort of spreads on its own in the way it wants to spread. Now, this is a little bud, so we're going to get that. And there's a couple of little buds around here. Like there's one. Here's one. All right, this is a leaf. I mean, that's not a leaf, it's a petal. All right. Might have been a little bit on the dry side, but it's better than having it a little too wet, I think. So it's seeping out a little bit over here. Not a big deal. Again, it is watercolor, so it's a little bit of that is to be expected. You can always mop it up a little bit and stop it from spreading. So going out a little bit, okay. Now to clean this, just squeeze it. The water runs clear, and then you can pick up another color. Now, at this point, some of it has started drying. This section, see, I just touch it and the whole leaf fills. Same thing here and here. I can sort of see by moving my head around that a lot of the other leaves are not quite wet enough. So we're just gonna wet them a little bit. And you can still see that they're not quite wet enough because it's not really spreading all that well. Oh, there we go. But when you've got it the perfect amount of water, it just feels like magic. You touch it and it goes. It's kind of cool. This again is a little bit dry out here. You can bring in a different color because leaves generally have some variation in their color, right? And going outside the lines a little bit in some spaces. And depending on where I touch them, they go more and not less. All right, so you have something that looks like this. Again, going outside a little bit, not a big deal. In fact, I'm going to make it look a little bit more authentic here. I'm going to make it go out a little bit in a couple places. So it just looks a little bit more like, an artist's watercoloring. But you've still got largely that defined look going on. All right. This side's a lot cleaner than that other side. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe squirt it out and see it goes out by itself. There you go. So you've got that very artistic look. And you can take your heat tool. Actually, I'm going to go on the lower setting and just let this dry up a bit. If you've got a spot that's really, really wet, go ahead and just barely touch it to your paper towel, or touch your paper towel to it. And that'll sop up some of that wet. You can also leave this to dry overnight if you've got the patience for that. All right, I'm going to take this off. All right, wipe up my surface. Make sure it's dry. All right, and I can tell that my paper is still a little bit wet in spots, so I'm going to dry that off camera. All right, I've cut a piece of Blackberry Bliss into a card base and a piece of Granny Apple Green that is just 1/4 of an inch larger than the dimensions of our watercolor paper. So this is 3.5 by 5. This is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to offset that a little bit. I don't want that to be on there straight because it is not of the same dimension as our card base. It's a little bit wider than it is long in proportion. I mean longer than it is wide. I'm going to just angle this a little bit to fit on there. All right, and you notice I put on quite a bit of glue, and that is because I wanted to make sure that the watercolor paper, if it was curling at all, would stay straight. Now it didn't curl. Now I need to either make it really straight or really crooked on that card front. And which way am I going to have my flowers go? Like this? Am I going to have it landscape? That is a really great question. I think we're going to go with, I don't know. I think we're going to make it portrait. It's neither portrait nor landscape until I put something on it, I suppose. Now, do I want it straight like that? I want to make it a little bit more crooked, I think. Crooked and crooked. Crooked and crookeder. Or do I want it the other way? Nope, I want this first way that I had it. Oh, can I get it done? Can I get it unstuck? I think I can. There we go. Now we need a sentiment. And I think a sentiment would look great in probably fresh freesia. I'm going to bring in the Something Fancy dies and the word set as well. This is often my go-to. I'll bring in the Happy Birthday stamp with this die. Have just the person that this is going to go to. Let me find my block. And we'll get out our Blackberry ink. And right here. And I'll die cut that and come right back. And here we go. Let's bring in some dimensionals. Oh, we're almost done with this one. Let's finish this one up. Look at, there's a nice long strip right there. Oh, we've got just a little bit left. Next time. And we'll pop this up. Let's see, let's have a go right here, I think. There we go. Now we just need some sparkles. And I think for this one, let's see, this, flat adhesive backed pearl. They kind of have some of those purplies in the iridescent nature to them. Now these two right here were colored with bronze Stampin' Blend, so those have a little bit of a different look. It was for a project that we did with Stampin' Up. Let's see if we can just add some of these. Some of these sharp, sparkly things. Here we go. Just adds a little bit of something else to it. Rhinestones would look great as they always do. But it's just something a little bit different. It changes color with the angle of the light. And there is that last card. Thank you for joining me tonight. I so appreciate you taking the time to spend with me and to support my business. Don't forget about the seasonal sale, and also if you would like the class card kit, your order must be placed using the link in the description of this video by the end of Sunday, November 17th. Now, tell me, which card was your favorite? I showed them to my husband, as I often do, and while he usually picks a favorite, tonight, sweet Mr. Rogers, who lives up to his name all the time, said he couldn't choose a favorite. And then he proceeded to tell me why he liked each one. He is such a sweetheart. I love him. But I hope you love them, but I really would like to know if you had a favorite. So go ahead and tell me your favorite in the comment section of YouTube, or you can jump on over to my Facebook page, Mrs. Rogers Stamperhood, and find the post with the link to this video there, and comment there what your favorite card was. And if you incorporate one of these techniques into a card this week, I would love to see the result. And so you can send that to me as well. I'd love to see your spin on things. Again, thank you for joining me. Don't forget about the seasonal sale. Try out these techniques, and I will see you soon, either during my Friday Night Live right here on YouTube at 7:30, or during my 3 p.m. 12 Sundays of Christmas series, episode number 8 on Sunday. Have a great rest of your week.